Hello and welcome back. In the previous segment, we started creating our composite service. We added a CMS adapter to our composite service. Now we can start gradually building more and more of this process. So drag and drop BPEL service engine into the canvas. Let's select BPEL 2.0. Let's call this, for example, OCR invoice processor. Let's say that this is this needs to be a one-way because we are just consuming messages from JMS message queue. We don't want to expose this as a SOA service, and then we want to define this input. So let's we actually want to, for this BPEL process, we want it to process this invoice or elements based on this invoice schema, which contains more data than this OCR invoice. So let's select that one. And I think we are done. Now we have a JMS adapter reading in messages which are based on this OCR invoice schema, and then we have a BPEL process which processes messages based on this invoice schema. So we obviously need something in between to mediate between these two data formats, and there's a component called Mediator which we can use for that. Let's call this, for example, Mediator OCR invoice to invoice. And let's say that we define this interface later. Then we wire these components together. And double click on the mediator part. And here we have this part, transform using. We can create the transformation. We don't have any existing transformation or mapper. We need to create a new one. This opens up a visual editor where we can do the mappings. We could either manually do the mappings by kind of drawing lines, for example, from this invoice data to this invoice data. That's one way to do that, but there's a quicker way. So I can just drag and draw from this OCR invoice to invoice, and that creates an auto mapper. So I can see how well it works, and it actually works pretty well. So I think it has automatically done all the mappings for me. All right. And of course this validation data is empty because it's not contained here. So that's it. So now I have a kind of a complete process which reads in messages, does the data transformation and routing, and then we have a BPEL process which accepts those messages but doesn't do anything with them. Just receives it and ignores it. So now we are at the point where we can actually test this a little bit. We can deploy this to the and see how well it works. So I can right click on this OCR invoice validator project, and I can here select deploy invoice processor, which is the name of our composite service. We will be deploying it to the application server. Just select override just so that I can in the future quickly deploy it. I will use this tutorial 2 connection which we created earlier. I could use actually either SOA or SOA tutorial. They all point to the same thing. There's also this integrated WebLogic server, but that cannot run composite services, and it's not running at the moment. So I'll deploy it to the installed SOA suite on my local machine. I will select that I will deploy it to admin server, and I will deploy it to this partition which I created in the first tutorial set. If you have not done the first tutorial set, you can also deploy to this default partition. This is just the namespace or naming convention of grouping things together. And then I can say finish. And then we can watch how well it goes. Okay. Now it's sending the archive to application server. You may remember from a previous tutorial that these composite services, they are actually just XML documents. So this is the composite service which is here shown in a graphical representation, and if I open the BPEL process, this is the graphical representation of the BPEL flow, and that's also a kind of an XML document also. And what happened during this process when I deployed is that these XML representations get turned into Java classes and compiled. This provides speed advantage because then application servers can apply things like this kind of this, I think it's called just-in-time compilation, so that they can look at the hotspots in the Java code and turn that into machine code whenever there is a need for that one. And anyway, running Java is much faster than executing these XML documents directly. So now we have deployed it successfully there. We can go and see, for example, from this Oracle Enterprise Manager, it's really deployed there. You may remember from first tutorial, this Enterprise Manager is the admin console for SOA deployments. There is a kind of this WebLogic server is the admin console, or WebLogic console is the admin for WebLogic application server, where you would run your Java applications and create your resources such as database pools and JMS resources. And this Enterprise Manager is the console where you manage your SOA deployments. I deployed it under this simple tutorial. So I have a couple of composite services from the first tutorial set, and now I have this invoice processor here. Okay. And there is actually now one instance, and this is because in the previous segment we actually sent one, we tested with this if you remember, we tested with this queue browser, we sent one message to this OCR invoice queue. And I think now this newly deployed process picked it up and started executing it, so we can check how well the execution went. Okay, this is the, you can see how the mediator did the changes. That bit has been working, and then we can go to the, if I close too much, we can go to this empty BPEL process, which has just received the request and not done anything with it. So I always like to kind of see this flow view for some reason. And this has been the input to our kind of BPEL process. So this mediator has correctly copied the values from our testing. And if you want to test again, I think you should see here an empty message queue now. Yes. If you want to test again, you can again send the same message, for example, again. And that one will create a new instance. I think it went very fast through this one. So let's go here and see the instances. So now we have 2 instances here. So I think this is the latter one. So we have now kind of a working infrastructure here. We have created CMS resources, we have created a composite service, and we can actually start really building some composite logic here. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next tutorial.